Hi, my name is Eric Levinson. We're at Hummingbird Inn and I'm the owner, innkeeper, and the chef. And today we're going to be making creme brulee French toast, and we're going to start off with the first part, which we do the night before. It's a two-part process. So to begin with, we're going to make the batter for the French toast, which is why we have to do this the night before, because the toast, actually the bread has to marinate overnight so that it can absorb the batter and form a custard overnight. And then tomorrow we'll do the second part, which is the actual baking of the creme brulee. So the ingredients that we're going to use for the batter are, we're only making one portion today, so we've adjusted that, so we're using 2 eggs for that. And the nice thing I like about this recipe is that it's very flexible, whether you're doing one portion or you're doing multiple portions. There's a lot of forgiveness in putting the batter together, so that it makes it easy to play around with a little bit, so you can adjust it how you like it. So we're going to use 2 eggs, a little bit of salt, kosher salt, some nutmeg, a little touch of vanilla, the very important part, which is the rum. And for those of you who don't like rum, you can substitute orange juice for the rum so that you can take that out. And then a little bit of heavy cream and some milk. And again, some flexibility here. If you don't have heavy cream, you can just add a little more milk and it'll be fine. So we're going to start off, we're just going to whisk a couple of eggs here. So these should be pretty well mixed up so that it isn't too loose. And then we're going to go ahead and add in, we're adding a ½ cup of whole milk and about 1/8 cup of the heavy cream. And we're going to put in a ½ teaspoon of vanilla extract, about 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, just a pinch of kosher salt, and then for one serving it's about a ½ or so tablespoon of dark rum. I find it's very difficult to do a half, so I always do a little extra. Just makes it easier. So then we'll go ahead and we'll whisk that back together, make sure everything is mixed in well. Now that we have our batter ready to go, the next part is the important part, which is the bread. And for this particular type of French toast, you want to use a nice, sturdy, crusty bread. If you use something that's like a challah or something that's too soft, when it soaks overnight, it's just going to become very difficult to work with and too wet and too moist. But something like this with a nice crust on it is nice and sturdy. This will hold up well, and it also absorbs all the flavor and has a nice texture to it. So you want to cut some very thick slices, because again, it's going to need to absorb that. So it's about 1 inch or so, should be fine. So just about that thick. And you want something that's, nice and full in terms of the bread. Sometimes you'll get some air pockets, and that's going to be a little bit of a problem when it comes to soaking up the batter. So the next part is just getting a nice deep glass baking dish that you can marinate your toast in, and you're going to use the same dish for the second part as well. You want something that fits nicely where the bread can fit into the dish with a little bit of room. And then you're just going to simply take your batter, and you're just going to slowly pour it over the top of the bread. And it goes about halfway up the width of the bread. If you go too deep, it's going to get too moist. If you don't put enough in there, it won't really have enough to absorb overnight. And then you can just turn it over and make sure both sides are coated. And at this point right now, this is the end of the first part. All you need to do is just put some saran wrap over that, make it nice and tight, put it in your refrigerator, and let it sit overnight. It's a minimum for 4 hours, up to 8 hours overnight, and then you're set to go for the morning. We are ready now to start the second part of the creme brulee French toast. So I've taken the French toast out of the refrigerator. It has soaked all night, and you can see most of the batter has been absorbed into the French toast. Again, this is why you want to have a nice thick piece of toast that's sturdy so that it doesn't fall apart. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create the creme brulee part. And what's different about this creme brulee, while it does have the consistency and the texture and the taste of creme brulee, it's not done like a traditional creme brulee where you're using the torch to brown it. And this way it makes it a lot easier to actually create a number of pieces without having to go through each one individually. So what I have here for this is I have 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and I have a 1/4 cup of light brown, packed pretty tightly, some brown sugar here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just mix the butter and the sugar together. And you want to give it a good mix so that it makes it into a fairly thick consistency, so that you can then spread that on the bottom of your glass dish, which is what you're going to actually bake the French toast in. Key tip here, make sure your glass dish is extremely dry. If there's any water in there from cleaning it or whatever, it will make spreading the sugar coating very difficult. So once you've got this pretty well mixed up, you're then just going to go ahead and pour it into the bottom of the glass dish. Get as much out as you can. And then you can use a spatula, or I like to just use the same spoon that I mix it with, and you just want to sort of pat it and spread it around so that it coats the full bottom of the dish, because you're basically making the French toast upside down, and that's when, because of the heat from the glass, it's going to actually caramelize and crystallize the sugar into the creme brulee coating for the top, because then you'll flip it over when we take it out of the oven. So then you just have a nice even coating like that on the bottom of your dish. And then you're going to take your French toast, you can turn it over and sop up any of that extra good batter and rum. And then you're just going to place that gently right on top of your sugar. And at this point right now, we're ready to go ahead and put it in the oven. The oven has been preheated to 375 degrees. And we're going to cook this or bake this for about 30 minutes depending upon your oven. And then we'll be able to finish it off after that. It's been about a half hour, and we're ready to take the French toast out of the oven. And this is the most critical part of the process, because you want to make sure you get the coating done properly. So this is what your French toast should look like, a nice golden color brown, and you can see the sugar is bubbling in there. And what you're going to do is you're going to use a spatula and flip it over, and then take a spoon and you're going to just spread the sugar coating, the rest of the sugar that's cooked on the bottom, and do a nice layer on top of your French toast, and that gives it the creme brulee look. And it's going to then sit out for about 5 minutes or so, and that you'll see when this hardens. And then at that point you can either put it in an oven to keep it warm, or you can go ahead and serve it. And that's our creme brulee French toast. And now our creme brulee French toast is done. Enjoy.